Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 11, 2023. And this special meeting of the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street in Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Mayor Shelby Ronstadt presiding. Also present are councilors Kate McAllister, Deb Rule, Joel Aspiro, Andy Grote, Jason Welker, and Justin Dick. If everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do we have any announcements from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would like to bring some attention and some appreciation to our frontline staff workers. The ones who answer the phone calls, respond to emails, monitor and reply to social media. Their job is incredibly taxing and I think emotionally draining. I deeply appreciate all the hard work, the resilience, the professionalism that our staff has. I think that we do a great job of interviewing, hiring the right people for the right job, doing the right things. Winter is a very trying time, and I think that we have done a fantastic job. And for those citizens that think that we've done a good job with responding to their concerns about snow removal, I would agree with them. So I thank all of our staff members that respond to those emails, monitor social media, as well as greet our customers, our citizens that come in through these doors, and know that their job is very, very hard, and we will continue to do better. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or announcements from council? Staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a couple of announcements and updates tonight. First, on my end, a reminder to the public that we have a survey posted on our website as well as on our Facebook page that is to inform our comprehensive plan update. It's a survey on housing and neighborhoods, and it's open for another week or 10 days. And we've gotten some responses, but we would like more because we're talking about ADUs, we're talking about infill, we're talking about types of development and things like that. So those citizens who've been concerned and want to have their voice heard on those issues, the survey is a good opportunity to participate in what will be an ongoing discussion. So results of the survey ultimately will go to Planning and Zoning Commission, who will have a discussion that this is a good way to get your voice heard. Second announcement update tonight, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda to talk about a new volunteer snow removal program that's been launched through a partnership, the city working with Envision Center. So Amanda.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good evening, council. I would like to start the update with these fabulous faces on the screen. If you're not familiar with the community resource Envision, they are a local nonprofit with really the purpose of connecting people. They connect those with that have a need with resources that may be available to assist. That includes a variety of services, to include some snow removal services. This is an effort that they've been trying to connect folks with for a number of years. And as you may recall, when the city relaunched our snow removal policy, we also launched a survey with that the last October. The results of that survey included a question regarding connecting volunteers with those in need. And overwhelmingly, the community responded that there was a role, some form of a role for the city to assist with this effort. As a result of that community feedback, our staff member, Holly Ellis, reached out to the Community Resource Envision Center team, and said, hey, we would really like your assistance in elevating this service. How can we help? And let us share with you what we found from other communities. So a few meetings later, a couple phone calls and a lot of passion by this team. Within a few weeks, even over the holidays, they are really proud, and we are super proud of them, to announce that they now have a very useful website. If you go to CRECidaho.com, you'll now notice on their homepage that if you need help with snow removal, This primarily right now includes sidewalks and getting to your front door, that you can simply click apply here. And the program is applicable to seniors primarily if you're over 60 years old or you have a disability and you need some assistance with removing snow. You also at this point need to live within the Sandpoint city limits. The program may extend to other services in the future, maybe additional areas, that's all to come, but this is certainly their first kickoff and launch. If you click apply here, I cannot emphasize enough just how easy this is to do. If you know someone that needs help or you're interested in volunteering, this is the entire page, and it really provides everything that a citizen or a volunteer needs. I clicked the volunteers to sign up, and the form took about 30 seconds to complete. And I would say the same is true for the volunteer application form. So basically, you complete the form, whether you're in need or going to help, and they help connect the two. And they really have, I think, some valuable procedures in place to help make sure that that's a smooth transition. So we wanted to make sure and help support and announce and get the word out and truly just say thank you to the Community Resource and Vision Center.
Mr. Mayor.
Amanda, I just want to say this is such an incredible example of what you're just referring to, you know, the quality of the people that we have here at the city. I'm so grateful to you and your team and to Holly in particular for staying on this and really following through with this. I know this was an idea that came up at our workshop. It was a concern of many citizens. And this is really, you know, you went out of your way to think out of the box and figure out how we can really be a resource here for the community. So big thanks, excuse me, to the Community Resource Center and to the Envision Center. They continue to do amazing work connecting with the community. And I'm just so proud that we were able to craft this partnership. I'm really excited about what this can do for our residents in need. And it's just a critically important piece to the puzzle of how we can keep our streets and sidewalks maintained in the winter. So thank you so much.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Again, I echo the mayor on that, but I was going to ask, is there a plan for promoting this via the city's website, social media, maybe the newspaper?
Yes, to all of those things.
Okay.
We're also doing a podcast. Miss Kate has been wonderful. I'm sorry, Counselor.
It's
Kate
okay.
McAllister has been wonderful in this partnership as well. And she'll be participating with Holly in a podcast that's going to be coming out too. So yes, all the different ways we are trying to get the message out.
Great.
And I think if you know someone that needs assistance, they can also hopefully in time be able to come into City Hall and fill out this form on our kiosk. I think we're really just going to go above and beyond to help people with it. So.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
is instead of having to have access to internet and request here, is there going to be a phone number available where people can call that need a volunteer? Because some of our elderly population are in such a generation where they don't do computers. So
Yes, great point. Thank you for bringing it up. And that's consistent with pretty much all of our forms. The frontline staff will often receive calls and will fill out the City Hall. You can also call the Envision Center and they'll walk you through it as well.
okay, so that'll go out in the education materials. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, council? Thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, we do have one other update and announcement. So I'm going to have the chief come up. People might have seen the announcement come out from Lake Ponderay School District today regarding some changes and improvements around school safety. Our school resource officers and police department chief have been working really closely, actually both of our chiefs on the fire side too, with the school around some improvements around safety. So Corey's also going to give an update on that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just a quick update. Dr. Myers, after she took over as a superintendent, she created a district safety task force or a team. They had several ideas of ways they can improve on, which I won't get into. The short version is one of the first things the school started doing is they started doing a lockdown. They had to have a staff sit there at the door. They had to unlock the door every time somebody came. She's excited to report. I'm excited to report back that there's 4 schools now that have an access control device where they can push the button, buzz, and enter the school. So you got the Sandpoint High School, Sandpoint Middle School, Lake Ponderay High School, and Clark Fork High School all now have functioning access points. So if you go to the school, or if anybody's listening, goes to the school, look for the sign on the building that says welcome, push the button for assistance. And we'll be able to push that button, get assistance, and now they have some controlled access. So it's in that team's steps of getting improvements to our school, leaps and bounds above where we were a year ago. So I'm excited. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, is that it? Great, thank you. Next is the public forum portion of the meeting, which gives the public the opportunity to address my council on items listed on the consent calendar or on any item that's not listed on the agenda. To accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you'd like to speak and did not have an opportunity to do so, we will reopen the public forum at the end of our regular agenda for those who didn't have a chance to be heard. Those here in chambers who wish to speak will need to complete a sign-up form, which is located at the table up by the front door. Fill it out and please hand it to the clerk here up in the front right of the room. For those who are participating on Zoom and wish to speak, I will ask for public comment. At that time, you can raise your hand and let the clerk let you in to the forum at that point to be heard. Comments shall not be personally derogatory, nor shall they be personally directed at any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities during meetings are for comments only. Please do not direct any questions to council or staff, and please do not approach the dais. Please note that during the public forum, council may not hear or take testimony on any planning and zoning matter that is before the city or is known to be likely application. Such testimony is allowed only during the public hearing. Issues regarding the performance of city employees constitute matters that must be discussed only in executive session, and those are not appropriate during the public forum. Matters that have been previously heard and decided by the council may be determined to be inappropriate for the public forum as well. Citizens may use this time to request that items be placed on a future agenda for further discussion. Those in attendance are not to disrupt this meeting or the business at hand that is being taken up by the council. That means no disruptive behavior, including clapping, disruptive noise, and comments or exclamations from the audience, please. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes. And Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and I'm assuming there's no one online that would like to speak as well?
No.
Okay, that concludes the public forum portion of the meeting. Now we will proceed with the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $424,848.09 for regular payables. Are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar?
None.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion that the consent calendar be approved.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes. Consent calendar is approved. Under old business this evening is an update on the downtown waterfront design competition. And I'll now yield the floor to City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Participating with me tonight is Dawn Stastny, who's presented a couple of different times to council on the proposed downtown waterfront competition, and Phil Cushlin, who has also been assisting us in this effort. He's online as well, although right now he's not showing on our Zoom call, but Phil is out there too in case there are any questions, and will fill in as needed. What we have before council tonight is a discussion and presentation on the final draft of the competition manual. We are not asking for a council decision tonight. This will come back to you next week at your regularly scheduled council meeting for consideration to approve opening the competition with a proposed open date of January 20th. So tonight we thought it would be helpful to go through, because as you will see, this is a 38-page, really in-depth document We've had a lot of questions about why a competition, why this approach, what does that mean? So we spent a lot of time in working through this manual, actually getting historical context for you, going back, as many of you on the dais will recall, because you've been involved in the efforts around strategic planning, downtown revitalization, the byway improvements in downtown, consideration of historic design standards, the comp plan in 2009. We got all of that context into this competition manual. So our plan after tonight would be to get this posted up tomorrow. So council has access to that for several days in advance and before we are normally posting our packet for next week's meeting, and it will be available for the public to see as well before this comes back to council for consideration. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Don, who's our competition manager, proposed competition manager, and who we hired to assist us with getting to this point to kind of walk you through the competition manual and again, answer any questions you may have.
Good, thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, everyone. We have been through the last couple of months meeting with a lot of people, really drinking from a fire hose as to what is going on in Sandpoint, what has gone on in Sandpoint, and what we can accomplish with the design competition itself. And thank everyone in the community for helping us in participating with in putting together the competition manual. The importance of a competition manual is that within this document, we set out kind of the context that we are dealing with. We set out design goals that we're trying to accomplish with the design competition. And then also it is the repository for the rules and regulations that will govern how we proceed with the design competition. So this document, once we publish it, which we hope to do after your approval next week, becomes in a way kind of the Bible and the roadmap for how we are going to go about the competition. It becomes the basis for information to participants. It becomes the basis for information to our jury. And should there be any governance issues that come up during the competition, the rules and regulations would determine how those would be adjudicated. So it is a very important document that we have found over our years of handling design competitions that really sets the stage for a good competition. It's has a clarity to it that the competitors can understand. It includes as much as we can the context of what is going on within Sandpoint. And like I say, basically becomes a roadmap as we go through the overall competition itself. I would say at the very beginning of this, we have an invitation here, which is really important. It isn't just kind of a cover letter in many, many ways. It is a request of folks that they really begin to think about what might be the most appropriate solution in developing a concept. It is signed by the mayor and the mayor and Kate, the city council president, to basically make it an official document and a request that's going out. So this letter itself becomes not, I could say, not just a cover letter, but something very important in making the invitation for people to participate. Let's go on, scroll down a little bit further. This begins the overall description of the competition itself. And while all of you probably know these facts and elements that are portrayed here, think about what someone like me coming in running a design competition, or competitors that might come in, what they might understand about Sandpoint. What we found, and I'm speaking of this more as a architect and city planner, was a tremendously interesting and committed citizenry to creating this place. And some things have gone well, some things have not gone so well, but there's been a history of moving within Sandpoint to build upon the strengths of the place and build a better place for generations to come. The competition itself is on this page here, and I would say that we've developed a 3-stage competition, and we did this with our stakeholder committee because of some of the concerns that they had. So we start out with an advertisement and a call for teams. And those teams will probably be made up of multidisciplinary teams. Some may be skewed more one way than the other, as far as some may be more towards design, some may be more towards economics, some might be more towards public development. We really don't know yet what those will be. But each team that comes in will have a certain character about it that we looked at. The jury will look at those submittals, and if you look in the design competition regulations, we say very specifically what we're looking for within those submittals. So we're not looking for a catalog of everything they've ever done. We're looking for specific examples about how they've handled complex problems like this before, how they've constructed their teams, how the leadership of the teams is involved. And as you see, it's a very specific number of pages that we are allowing to come in, so that the jury itself does not have to go through many teams. No, keep it up there a little bit further. I want to go through. Yeah, so these will come in into the jury. The jury will look at these and evaluate them and select 3 to 4 teams, which they will advance to stage 2. Stage 2 is the time when the work of the teams really begins, and we will pay an honorarium to each selected team. They will first of all come into Sandpoint for a briefing, in which we will roll out the problem again and give them tours and let them really understand as much as they can about Sandpoint and the community. At the end of the of the briefing, I might say we always kind of sponsor a Meet Your Designer Night, which is an opportunity for the community to come in and get a presentation from each of the teams as to what their approach will be. These are short presentations, about 10 to 15 minutes, but will give the community a real, what we found in the past, that the community getting a real understanding about what the disciplines are that are coming in on the team and what the commitment is to the team to come up with the right kinds of answers. After they make their submittal at the end of stage 2, the design teams will again make presentations to the jury, and we let those presentations be open to the public as far as viewing. It isn't an input session as much as an opportunity for the community to see what is incorporated within each team concept. Then the jury will meet on those and consider the presentation, both the hard copy as well as the verbal presentation, and make a selection of one team, which will enter into stage 3. Stage 3 is the stage that we have inserted into this and we have used this before, as a way to go back, because we think the outcome of stage 2 will be a very complex piece. Stage 3 enables our selected team. Excuse me for using winning. We don't have winners or losers. We have selected teams and non-selected teams. The selected team will then meet with our advisory group and also with the jury comments from stage 2 and make refinements to their overall plan to answer any outside questions that are still out there. They then will come back and present to the jury their findings, which will be a refined plan and based on the input from the selection committee and the jury to that point. So in the end, we should have a overall concept that is solid, that has been reviewed by the community, as well as our technical advisory group, and will be answer to what we are asking within the competition brief. So if you then, Jennifer, let's roll on to what is here. Our overall objective is to celebrate and honor the past, recognize the pressures, demands, and needs of the present, and define the future of downtown Sandpoint and its waterfront. Simply put, that is what we're trying to accomplish. This work will also, of course, inform your comprehensive plan update, future zoning and code changes that may be a part of it, and will very definitely refine and the concepts and assist those private developers as they begin to develop with something that adds to the overall environment of the downtown and the waterfront, and maybe resolve some of those conflicts that currently exist. Next. We roll up to this again. We are think about we will have hopefully some local representation in this. We will also probably have people throughout the Northwest who might not know about Sandpoint. So this particular section deals with the one that's kind of area of focus that we are asking them to address. And you'll notice this is a bubble. And we've gone back and forth between a very strict line to understanding that there are connections outside of this bubble as well as within the bubble. And we would rather have people look at the overall context as opposed to just looking within a series of lines which might delineate the downtown or other elements. Next. A very important part of the competition manual and of the competition is trying to come to terms with what we are asking the designers to design to. And we've come up through our consultation with our committee, as well as with meeting with various individuals around the community, as well as our very capable and wonderful staff that Jennifer has under her auspices. And we've come up with a design program that addresses 11 different elements. First of all, an overall framework, respects nature, looks at the issue of water quality, how that is involved in the overall planning, respect for the tribes, both historically as well as currently. 5 is the history of Sandpoint, which is very rich and very, very involved. You guys should be, I know you're very proud of it, but it is quite a wonderful history. And the most important thing is, I think it's kind of been documented in many ways that a lot of times we don't see within the community. There is a recreation goal, which is set about the year-round recreation, both for residents and tourists. There's a very strong element of arts and culture. And so many times in towns of this size, arts play a tremendous role, both in attracting tourism as well as giving the community a chance to both express itself as well as nurture art and culture. Number 8, scrolling down a bit more, economic development. We want to be able to address how economic development will affect the overall area and where there might be opportunities for economic development, but also the responsibility of economic development to not only address the needs of that particular development, but how it fits within the larger context of the downtown and the waterfront. We want to address movement and access. Now, you had some work done already in this area, but as we begin to tie the waterfront and the downtown together, there's probably another element of movement and access that must be looked at. 10 is resilience. We want them to have a plan, one that in itself is resilient, but also that it is a plan that recognizes resiliency as far as how we as humans intervene within the natural systems and make them and celebrate what the natural systems are, as well as maintaining and conservation kinds of maintenance and conservation types of activities. And 11 then is implementation. How do we get all this done? Are there specific actions that need to be put in place? This might run all the way from large strategic direction to even looking at some of the regulations and zoning that is in place and making recommendations as to what is in that particular area. So those are the 11 elements that we've identified, and as both in working with our advisory committee, our staff, and then the individual interviews that we've had around town. Next. This is a section that basically was authored by Jennifer and others within her staff. We took an initial stab at it and found out that there were just so many things that we didn't know about. But each of the staff also gave us a paper about their thoughts and concerns about what is in the area. So this little history context piece is really quite good. And I was telling Jennifer earlier, to me, it's almost like a capsulization of the history of Sandpoint that can be used far beyond the competition. It's a document in itself, which begins to talk about how Sandpoint came to be, the various actions that have been a part of it going forward. And as a part of this piece that has been authored essentially by Jennifer and her staff, it gets into a lot of the current conditions that you're dealing with, all the way from the current plans that are in effect, how the city might continue to both develop as well as respect its history of what is there. And so it in itself is a very wonderful document that will go far beyond the competition. What is most important in looking at it as a competition manager and as a designer myself, this illustrates both the complexity of Sandpoint as well as the culture and what is important to the citizens of Sandpoint. So I believe in reading it over that this will not only this should entice people to really think about their teams, their makeup of the teams, and how they might be constructed to provide Sandpoint with the best teams that we could possibly find that might be either local or through the Northwest. This current context piece is the one which really begins to go into current plans that are in place and what has been proposed in some of the private development and how that fits within the overall context of the area. And we have hopefully within this captured a lot of the elements of what is currently going on within Sandpoint, the different plans that are in place and where certain studies are going. So then we move on to we're still in the zoning, okay,
We had a lot of context on.
a lot of context. Like I said, I think this becomes almost a history lesson in itself and can be used far beyond just this competition. You guys been busy.
I think that what the council will find in the context section, and I think this will be especially helpful to the community really in understanding why the competition and why this is being proposed and is this something new? Does this change what we're doing in Sandpoint? When you really look at context and where we're going back and discussing downtown revitalization efforts, in many ways, we're at the end of a 20-year cycle of downtown revitalization that really started and we were talking about downtown revitalization long before this time, but in terms of real significant investments, actions, capital projects, you saw that really start in the late, just before 2000s. That was when there was in real earnest discussion, the byway, the Tom Hudson study. Some of you may remember the creation of the Urban Renewal Agency to begin to fund downtown revitalization efforts in the early 2000s. The start of capital improvement projects in downtown, which included some improvements to the city's parking lot, as well as improvements to Church Street, our parking, a development of a parking management plan, the development of Jeff Jones Square, Farm and Park. And then following that, we were into the comprehensive plan in about 2007, 2008, ultimately adopted in 2009. Following that was significant code changes, including zoning, design standards for the downtown. Following that was the adoption of the Downtown Streets Guide and us moving into even more significant revitalization efforts, which we've seen in recent years. That was from building face to building face on Cedar as well as on First. And so we are at the end of a 20-year effort with this and in the midst of a comprehensive plan update. And so really through this downtown competition, it is informing again these concepts that we have in our Parks and Recreation plan, revetting those to get us moving forward with final conceptual design, getting ready for construction drawings and then phased construction of this. As well as informing that comp plan, which we have scheduled to hopefully be completed this spring in conjunction with this process as well, which then leads to zoning changes. There's been much discussion about the creation of a historic district in the downtown. You'll see a lot of discussion in this section where we are talking about relative to the concerns about losing that feel about the downtown. There have been a lot of discussions over the years about color, building material, and building height has been a significant discussion point you will see over and over through this context coming up again when we had the Historic Design Standards Committee that was convened following the loss of the building at Bridge and First, as well as the condemnation and then tear down of the building next to Cedar Street Bridge on First. And so much discussion through that process about perhaps related to building height, what is in building heights in what would be a historic district. Maybe those should be lower than what they are in other areas of downtown. So again, this is the opportunity to revet all of those efforts and kind of culminate them again into a single strategic vision. So you'll see in this context session, all of the reference to all of our various plans, multimodal plan, as well as our historic preservation, arts and culture master plan, the most recent parking study, the Leland study, the current comp plan, the comp plan updates, the Parks and Rec master plan. So all of the planning efforts that we've been going through more recently over the last 4 years are all referenced in this, and it's culminating all of that together. So that is all in the context section. And I think as we've been talking about the design competition and people really understanding what that is, looking back at what we did 20 years ago, we hired a single consultant to really take us through a strategic planning process for this, for downtown. What this is a multidisciplinary team of planners, which we had back in the early 2000s helping with this effort, but stormwater engineers and others involved in this process, that it's a multidisciplinary team really looking at all aspects of the master plans that we have, and not only putting that vision for the downtown in words like what we have in our comprehensive plan, but really putting the visuals behind it through this process as well. All right, Don, I am moving to the process. That's you.
Okay, let's, get the chart up. So this is a step-by-step chart that we have developed over time, which shows kind of where we are at any one particular time, and how the elements that we will see within the design regulations or within the competition regulations kind of carry out in each particular stage. I'd like to point out within this, and we can make it a little bit more obvious, that there are a number of times when the community will interact with the process. And those opportunities will present themselves very early on, and will then continue through the stage 2 evaluation, and then finally in the stage 3 evaluation. So that we consider that to be a very important part of what's going on here. Okay, let's then kind of scroll through the regulations. Now, the regulations, we try to get as much into this as we can. These are based on past experience, that we know what needs to be addressed. One of the things I think that we are known for by the professions is that we are very clear about what needs to be done to participate, so that they aren't worried about politics or that type of thing, but only focusing on what their particular charge is. The parts of this that are very important, I think, is that we want everyone to register. That's mainly so we know who's out there and who might be looking at this. We have ongoing question and answer periods in which questions they have would come in, and we would anonymously answer those and be published back to everyone, so that there's kind of a running question and answer period. When everything comes in, we go through a compliance check to make sure that they're submitting within the requirements that we're asking for, and then the evaluation and selection through the jury. If and says when things come in, and I mean, just little details like that are very important to the competitors. Next section does the same thing for stage 2. And if you notice, there's a stage 2 competition briefing. This is when we will bring the teams to town and we'll spend the day with them both, getting them information, letting them tour the area. And as you'll see at 1.11, meet your designers night, when we really want the designers to make a presentation to the community and let the community appreciate what the talents that they are bringing to the problem are. We will have a mid-course review. And we think that we're not sure if that'll be 1 or 2. We're still evaluating that. This is an opportunity for each design team to meet separately and confidentially with our technical advisory group within the city. So it's it's an opportunity for the design team to essentially have a client, if you will, where they can ask whatever questions they want to ask and get a direct answer. Or if we cannot answer them in that session, then we would answer it in writing later on. For the most part, those questions are between the particular design team and the technical advisory group. If there are things that come out of those discussions that are program changers that should be reiterated to everyone, then we will do that. After we get the submittals in stage 2, we will have a public exhibit of those. We will also have a technical review by our technical advisory group that will be ready for the jury. And then we will have the design proposal presentation in which each team will be given the opportunity to present their design proposal to the jury. And it is our intention that the community would be able to attend these to be able to see what the concepts are if they would like to have a part of it. We would also like to put these on public exhibit somewhere, which would allow the public to come in and see what they are. If they want to make written comments, then we would collect those and give those to the jury. So at the end of stage 2, the jury will make scroll up a little bit more. Oh, up, other way. Then we'll make the selection of the stage 2 team, or selection of the team that will go on from there into a stage 3. We'll hold a stage 3 workshop. This will be in town, working session with the design team, technical advisor group, as well as others that we may want to consider within that. That workshop will be the basis for them going back and making updates to their overall presentation, which they will come back and make that presentation to the jury. And again, that presentation to the jury will be open to the public for observation. The stage 3 evaluation by the jury then will essentially say whether the concept has evolved to the point to addressing the different concerns. And then their final decision would be, their final decision then would be passed on to council for adoption. There are a number of people involved in this, as you know, as we go through this. We had a advisory committee to start with. If you'd roll backwards a little bit. There. And these people, these categories that folks have are necessary so that everybody knows exactly who's on first and who's giving certain aspects of input going into it. sponsor, of course, the city of Sandpoint. We have a stakeholder committee that Jennifer put together, which we have met with a couple of times. And that stakeholder committee is made up of citizens, of people within the community, in the cultural community, developers, builders, etc. I'm sure that if you understand a committee like that, if there are 15 people, there are at least 16 different opinions. But we tried to find a common ground for all, and that's included within the context and within the piece of that Jennifer authored. We have a jury, and I'll go into the jury a little bit more. Our technical advisory group is made up of staff people that have been involved with us all the way through on this. And then we are the competition manager, and the competition manager not only adjudicates and moves the competition forward, we also take care of all communications as a part of our work, so that there's one point where questions or information is both coming in and going out. So there's a single source of communication all the way through. This is also, we will make sure that the city folks, city staff know that should they get any questions, that those questions should be routed to us as a competition manager, so we aren't getting conflicting information out there. Next. There's a section here which really speaks to the communication. And then we go through what the mandatory requirements are for each stage and each submittal. Again, you'll see on the right here, the portfolio contents. We aren't looking for a hardbound book. We're looking for specific things. And so we say exactly what we're looking for. We speak to the page count, because we don't want the jury to have to read a novel each time that they take one of these things up. Design philosophy and intent, one of the evaluation criteria, and that becomes a key element, I think, in how we narrow these submittals down to the 3 to 4 teams. As you can see, we're asking for very specific things and not everything they've ever done in their life. Stage 2 proposals, this is kind of the beginning of it. During stage 2, we make sure that what they are submitting answers the questions that are necessary, but also serves the competitors in a way that they feel like they're getting their information across. What we don't want is something that is so large that it isn't able to be comprehended. And so we try to start limiting it to boards that we can put on exhibit, a design report that will be given to the jury ahead of time, so they'll be able to read it and look at it. The public presentation with the jury, and a couple other details we asked for. Again, from experience, we want an electronic copy of everything, so we don't have to go back and ask for it later. And we also asked for a press kit. So 1-page narrative and photography that they choose, so that we aren't burdened with the task of going through their submittals and picking out what we think is important. It's more what they think is important. So the press kit is put together in such a way that the city can just put that out to the newspapers and as a piece that they give us. The evaluation criteria. Again, we've got this in a fairly general way at this particular point. As the competition evolves and the criteria evolves, or excuse me, as the competition evolves and the ideas evolve, we might enhance this list as we go through and what we give to the jury itself. So stage 2, while it's set out pretty specifically, also gives us an opportunity to modify, change, or enhance certain parts of it. Because we're working with a smaller population, basically 3 or 4 teams, as opposed to who knows might be out there for stage 1. Next. The honorarium we're proposing is a $40,000 honorarium to each of the stage 2 teams. What I would like to say about the honorarium is we know from practice and experience, each team will spend at least that 3 times that amount in billable time. It's one of the quirks of a competition. But what it means is if you're having a design competition, you're not just dealing with one consultant, but you're dealing with a broad range of ideas. So that there may be ideas that come out of one team that maybe future inclusion, maybe used for future inclusion into something. It's a free floating of ideas coming in. We would pay an additional $40,000 honorarium to the stage 3 team. Again, to cover some of their losses in the stage 2, but also then to entice them to complete the job going forward. We do not compensate in any way, shape, or form the stage 1 participants. We've got language in here as far as ownership, use of competition submittals, things like that. That comes from our experience about what we want to retain for the sponsor, and the right to use those documents as you see fit. But that the design teams themselves can use the work for promotion or marketing efforts, which is usually their concern. Okay. Our overall schedule is where, if we are fortunate enough to receive the approval of the council next week, we will begin registration and advertisement on January 20th. And we will go through each of those pieces in appropriate time. We've got them set out in such a way that we know there is the proper amount of time between them from input to production. It's a very tight schedule. We do this because 1, we don't want it to go on forever, and 2, this is to the benefit of the teams, and that they know it is tight and concise, and so they can do their internal budgeting about what they're going to put against or put to the project as they evolve. So we're looking at finishing out the final concept in late June. And at that time, we should be complete with the competition itself. And then it can roll into the other procedures and plans that are beginning to develop. So it's a quick 6 month with a lot of activity, both in town and out of town. But should result in some fantastic kind of ideas that we hadn't really thought of till now. Next. The jury. I refer to this when we're putting together a competition as designing the jury. We do this to get a broad range of folks that are making evaluation decisions. We put a lot of effort into finding people that have expertise in certain areas. We put a lot of effort into finding people that we know will collaborate with other jury members, won't try to dominate. And I might say in that particular case, we do not allow a jury chairman. I facilitate and the jury itself, because we do not want to have one person which has the hammer. Other than me, of course. But we have put together, the other thing I would say about the jury is the competitors will look at the jury and get a picture of what to expect. So it is a multiple or multidisciplinary jury. And we would hope that they would look at that and begin to put their teams together in such a way that might look at these. Steve Gill with who's Brownfields analyst with the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. Han Mei Chang, who's a project manager for Hoffman Construction. Han Mei is an architect, but what she does within Hoffman Construction, which is one of the biggest construction companies in the Northwest, is dealing a lot with diversity, with equity, with hiring, and training within the Hoffman organization about those kinds of elements. Next is Herb Fricke. Herb Fricke is a Native American. We don't have his tribal affiliation right now, but he actually graduated in civil engineering from the University of Idaho. He has his firm Akana, which is a Native-owned professional services firm based in Portland, but works all over the Northwest in various areas, planning, designing, engineering, managing projects. And I worked with them for a number of years on different projects. They have a lot of people within the organization, specialists in different areas. And Herb himself is quite an outstanding individual. We're asking Katie to be a part of this. And you all know her background and the importance of it. I think it's important to have people that are share a passion for the city and the area. Unfortunately, well, we try to make sure that they are somewhat isolated from everybody coming on the corner and beating up on them. And that's one of the reasons for making sure that any kind of questions come through us so that we can put them back to different people, the right people. Brian McCormick is Nez Perce. Again, we've known and worked with Brian probably for at least 20 years, if not more. He's based out of Lapwai on the Nez Perce Reservation. He's actually worked in a number of places around the world. His experience is interesting in that he not only brings a native sensitivity to his work, but a very strong understanding when it gets into planting plans and things like that of what native plants are and the importance of what those native plants are to the Indian community as well as others. Next. Mayor Shelby, we're asking you to be a part of this as well. And both as your position as mayor, but also I think to give you an opportunity to really understand the design competition as you will be running with it after the design competition itself. Karen Whitman, who is a current executive director in Portland of the Halpern Landscape Conservancy. I don't know if you know Portland, but there is a series of parks called the Halpern Sequence, which is on the south part of town, which was designed by famous landscape architect Lawrence Halpern. And it's a series of spaces and pathways that lead through the south part. Before that, she has been very much involved within the city. She at one time was executive director for Pioneer Courthouse Square, our main square in Portland. She knows how to talk the talk, but she also has a very good understanding, I think, about finance and public finance of public facilities. So that I think that will enter into it going on. And then last but not least, but late with his bio, is Rob Talbot. Rob, of course, brings his experience in the cultural world, the reuse of historic buildings, And I think a pretty good understanding about the way that the cultural aspects of Sandpoint operate and what the principles are in that area. One of the elements we use, or one of the factors we use in designing the jury, is identifying people both inside but a lot outside the city, who the city can always turn to for additional advice should they need it. So for instance, we would expect that Karen Whitman, for instance, might be available to help guide any kind of fundraising efforts or funding for public spaces that might be there, which would be over and above what the competition is. But we want people that become a part of the community, that become trusted by the community, and then also can help help the community later on, helping Jennifer and staff and others as they go towards implementation of this. Next. Then there's us, myself and Jen Manhart, and everybody that's been working with me has knows what the importance of Jen is. Jen puts together this document, for instance, the graphics. She's communications manager, and she will handle the website and the question and answers coordination all the way through. I'm just an old architect that hangs around on competitions. So I think that is it. The other element, Jennifer, I see that we are missing in this is we wanted to list our steering committee. And that will be in the final document. So I think that's kind of it. Again, the competition manual gives us a roadmap. It gives competitors an idea of what the complexity of the problem is. And my hope and desire is that they will be attracted to the complex problem. That's been our experience in the past. Simple problems they don't get too excited about. But I think when there's a complex problem out there, they're willing to invest time and effort into it, if nothing more than professional development within their particular office. So when and if, and hopefully next week, you will be able to direct us to move ahead. We are giving you this, Jennifer will make this a competition manual available to you. I would hope that during this week you could read it over. If there are specific things that are questions or clarifications that you think should be in here, submit those to Jennifer in writing. And then we will take care of making sure those get in there in the final document.
Don, thank you for that presentation. One question that comes to mind is about around the advertisement. Can you tell us a little bit more how that works? And for example, I imagine, having done dozens of these in the past, that you already have kind of a running list of contractors or design teams out there that you would reach out to, presumably with an email or something. But it's about a 3-week window there. It seems like a pretty tight timeline. I'm wondering if you've already done some preliminary contact to see if those to alert those firms that there's going to be a design competition coming their way. So can you tell me a little bit about your advertisement process and what we can expect to see in terms of applicants?
Well, the solicitation, of course, will be done in accordance with your regular policies as far as advertising and what it is. We have lists of people that have been a part of these in the past. We go to the professional organizations like the American Institute of Architects, the American Institute of Planners, city planners, and get it on in their newsletters or have them put it out in their emails. There will be a number that we know about, I would say, of leaders within the design profession up and down the coast. That we can't, we have to be very careful not to make it look like we're promoting them. But we get the word out that they are able to, or that the project is out there and please look at it. Being at this a while, we've got a pretty good Rolodex. If anybody there still knows what a Rolodex is. Kind of like a landline. It is tight, Mr. Mayor. But I think we're also driving towards the end date, and to get everything in, we're almost going to have to do that.
Thank you. Council, any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Hi, Don. This is Justin Dick here. Thank you
Hi,
for being
Justin.
with us. I also want to say thank you to your staff. Thank you to the city staff, the stakeholders, and the jury as well. I think we're all very excited to get a hard copy of this and start diving in here. A couple of quick questions. I want to dovetail on what the mayor was asking here in terms of the call for teams. How many teams in that stage one would you anticipate for a good kickoff for the design competition? Is there a number that you could actually put to that? I know we're trying to get down to 3 to 4 teams by stage 2, stage 3.
We're asking for a pretty specific team makeup. I would say if we got 10 to 12, we would be doing well.
Thank you. How much more or less challenging is a design competition with such a large, and I'll use your words, green bubble versus very site specific?
The very site specific is what you would give a selected designer. So if you said you had one contractor out there and you're going to use them, that's when you would go more site specific. By giving the bubble and the context and everything, it gives them the opportunity to dream a little bit and to really push the edges of everything. We aren't being so specific that they have to answer to specifics that we give them. I will say, however, Justin, as we go into the stage 2 briefing, at the stage 2 briefing, we will probably identify a number of kind of critical areas that we know about. We don't want to put that out in the general document, but the stage 2 briefing, if there are particular areas that we know there are conflicts that need to be resolved, or we want them specifically to look at, we can do that during the briefing itself.
Okay, thank you. This might be a better question for the city staff. Who is the technical advisory group? Is that city staff?
Yeah.
That is? Okay. We've had a number of community members that have reached out and asked a very simple question. How could a group outside of the area of Sandpoint or even Idaho actually attain the character or the representation of the character of Sandpoint without being here? And I asked this question without really digging into this as much. This is the first time I'm seeing this as well too. Looks like you have some pretty strong guidelines, but maybe you could help answer that for some of our concerned citizens.
Well, I would hope as we go into this that our local folks would participate in this. You know, they may contact some professionals that they know about. It would be wonderful if there would be local representation on every team. And be a part of that. Again, what the teams will look for, they enjoy and work on complex situations. And I think that this has got enough complexity into it to bring it in. There are enough times, I think, within this where the community will be able to interact with the process and identify where there might be concerns or bits and pieces that they want answers to. In any case, if there are questions, they can put those in writing, get them to Jennifer, and we will somehow integrate them into the overall Q&A process.
Perfect, thank you. And last question, when Jennifer was going through the slides here, there seemed to be a picture or page dedicated to the carousel. Are we allowed to take a look at that and maybe understand how that plays into the design competition?
I'll start with the context and then Don can fill this in as well. So in the context of Carousel Smiles was included in the narrative relative to context to be considered by the design groups. They're specifically to consider the downtown waterfront concept as well as the city beach, the adopted city beach concept. Because the Carousel Smiles was considered as a part of the development of the waterfront competitions or the concepts, we've included the detail in here on a bit about the background, what the project is about, and that the preferred site selected for the carousel was over at the Sand Creek Landing. So as a part of including and considering that concept for the downtown waterfront, consideration of the carousel relative to that is included in the manual.
And then the hope would be is that, again, please realize the value of the stage 2 briefing. Because that's the time when we can take each of these pieces and either get a quick presentation on what is there or the direction it's going.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Don, thank you. Jason Welker here.
Hi, Jason.
So kind of piggybacking on one of Justin's questions, he asked about the potential for teams that enter the competition in stage 1, perhaps not having as much local knowledge of the issues and challenges we're facing in Sandpoint. My question is about the jury. From my count, we only have 3 local representatives on the jury of 8. What effort will be made to educate the jury about the issues that Sandpoint faces? Will there be an opportunity to bring all the jury members here to introduce them to the community? Secondly, kind of following up on that, city council meetings, when we get presentations on development or proposals or plans, they're open to the public and we take public comment before making any decisions. Will the jury considerations of these submissions be public meetings where the public can provide feedback to the jury? I know you mentioned on the timeline, there was something about, community town hall type opportunities for the community to come see plans. But what about when the juries go to make their decisions? Will jury members who haven't been in our community during the weeks and months of this competition have the opportunity to hear from the public? I guess my concern is, after next Wednesday, looking at the timeline, it doesn't look like city council will have opportunity to be directly presented to on these until June 21st, when the final choice has already been made. So where's the public feedback opportunities in this process when only 3 out of the 8 jury members are locals?
You want me to go back up to the schedule, Don?
Let's see. I mean, I'm counting 4 as local.
Yes, I agree.
So
Four
maybe I
and
don't know.
four.
I have
Yeah.
Katie, Shelby, and Rob. Who's the 4th?
Steve.
Steve
Yeah.
Gill. Okay, I don't know Steve.
Yeah. So that was a part of it.
Okay, I did not have the chance to read his whole bio.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think what I would ask Jason is when you read it,
Mhm.
See what you think then. I believe we have put enough mechanisms in for the community to participate, understand. And as long as we keep with the communications protocol, we'll it will be able to insert those into the process as we go through. Because we have one place for questions and answers to come in and go out of, we can control that information flow. Going back to the relationship with council, we would come in after each phase and give a report to the council of where we were and where the what the jury decision was. So we would keep you appraised of where we are. As community members, you would also be a part of any kind of public displays that are part of it. So I think in the end, you would, like I say, read it over, make sure you're satisfied in that particular area. But I believe we have it set out so that there would be good involvement of the community all the way through. Again, we don't want, when something like this, you don't want a lot of people giving direction. So it's important as we go through and we gather community input, that it goes through the proper channel to make sure that every team gets the same information. And that's what one of the things we as a competition manager do.
Jennifer, could you go back to that schedule, please? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to note too, just adding to what Don had said to Councilor Welkers in response to Councilor Welkers' questions. One of the key elements with the jury, and we had a lot of questions through stakeholder groups and from the staff on how is a jury put together, who is it? And really that professional group and the element that jury group brings in is as design teams, particularly when you think about our waterfront concepts and moving forward with those concepts to getting those to design. What is different in this process than what we typically do with our conceptual processes is we have a conceptual process by a design group. They're moving through to then construction drawings to go to construction. In this case, through the conceptual designs, your vetting is your jury group, your technical experts. So if somebody recommends something for improvement down at City Beach, your jury group are your technical experts that are going to look at what is being recommended and actually if it's viable, what are the consequences of it? Is it buildable? So that is happening in your conceptual phase to a level that typically doesn't happen when we're doing straight concepts. So we have our parks we have our downtown waterfront and our City Beach concept. But for example, when you look at the City Beach concept, there was a lot of question around the public about that location for the new boat launch and whether that really was a viable location for launching different type of watercraft, what would be the turn radius getting out there and the concern about that particular location relative to the fairly narrow channel of Sand Creek going into the downtown. That's the type of thing that with the jury, which is different than the public process, the jury process and having the technical experts on the jury, they're really going to analyze that and determine if the design team's moving forward with that, is that really viable or not, which was a public concern, but the public aren't necessarily the technical experts on that. So that's, I think for me, an understanding the public process in terms of feedback. Does this fit our community? Does this what we have in mind? Is this reflecting our historical character? There's the opportunity through the public process for those conversations to occur and to inform the overall process. The jury process is that technical expert side of what is being presented, what are the unintended consequences, is it buildable, is this viable? What would be those particular considerations that are different with the jury than what they are with the public?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, let me just, are you?
I do have one more question, actually. This is maybe for Dawn and your experience in projects like this in the past. And let me try to articulate this. I think there's a lot of pent up private capital in Sandpoint that's kind of waiting to see the outcome of this before they begin large investments in new developments downtown. We've also seen over the last 3 years, public plans that have produced beautiful, concepts for the downtown area, from the Sand Creek public space on Farmers Landing to City Beach. What we know in Sandpoint is that private capital is way more active than public capital for obvious reasons. We're in Idaho, being the first reason. Therefore, we have a very limited tax base to do public projects with. What are the deliverables from this competition that on June 21st, when we've developed this, there's something that we can adopt or put in place as a city that will influence that private capital investment that's waiting to be activated in 2023 and 2024. In other words, it may be 5 or 10 years before the city is ready to completely rebuild the Farmers Landing property or invest $7.5 or $12 million in City Beach. But there's millions of dollars waiting to be spent right now along First Avenue. What will this competition deliver that will steer that development in a way that fulfills the vision of the competition and of the final design concept?
Going back into what we are asking for, there are, as we move into the stage 2 briefing and into that stage, that gives us a opportunity to work one-on-one with each team. So it becomes much more of a client professional, client architect kind of relationship of what is going on. We want them to also think about where there are issues within current regulations that might be one, either too limiting or too broad. And we would ask them to identify those within their stage 2 submission. My sense is that we'll come out of this with an answer that answers that will allow the private development to proceed within the overall concept that is there. Again, it is very dependent upon the direction the collective we give to the competitors as we go forward. Experience has been that, you ask about that, is that usually the concept is so strong that it begins to identify opportunities for private investment that may be there, or that would enhance private development in such a way that it would be more compatible with the larger idea than independent development that may or may not work within the overall concept.
Okay.
I agree. I understand your concern. And I have a cop out that we use a lot, trust the process, but I think we'll get there.
I would just ask that, and maybe this is for the technical advisory group and for the jury, that during this process, we do present, selected, the team selected for stage 2 with things like our design standards for downtown. We say, consider this in your packet, in your proposal, like how could we improve upon these to fulfill the vision that you're laying out here? Because if we're given a great vision, but then we don't give developers the tools to fulfill that vision in terms of improved code and language, building ordinances and things like that, I think we're just going to have more frustration and butting of heads with developers. So that's something I would urge the jury and the technical advisory group to do in the process. And Don, I think you just described that. That's where that on-site briefing opportunity to present these teams with that, you know, put our development ordinances right in front of them and say, make sure you consider these in your proposal. Yeah.
Mr.
Very
Mayor,
much so.
I think when you get in and read all the context,
Mhm.
you'll see all of the references to all of those documents are in there.
Great.
I actually, when we had submitted text to Don and to Jen initially, we had links to specifically all of those documents, which all of those links didn't end up in the design competition manual. But with that said, I think all those links aren't there because they will be on the competition website page. And one thing council will see is as you're reviewing this, and I'd encourage you to go on to our city website. There is right on our front page, there's a tab that says master plans. We've just posted that up and reworked that page in the last week while we were working on all of our text for this. Every master plan the city has adopted is all on there. And comp plan update, Parks and Rec master plan, Parks and Rec master plan concepts, multimodal plan, water plan, sewer plan, stormwater plan. Everything we've been working through is up on that page. Leland report is on there. So we've referenced all of that. So when these groups are going through this and reading the context, the reference documents are also readily available on the website, and we'll be working again on links on that competition page. You'll also see in the context though, I've included references to commercial A design standards in there. There is that historic design standards committee and some reference to what were kind of the points they really struggled with. So all of this is there. And as part of the technical briefing, that's what we expect from design teams too, that they'll probably have questions in those areas. And that's then in terms of the technical team from the staff, there was questions. Who is that? That's the staff. From our staff, that is our city planner. That's our IDS director. That's our utilities director. That's myself. That's our historic preservation officer. That's our parks planning and development manager. So it's kind of our broad high-level technical team at the city. They're all familiar with all of those documents too, and then can specifically, as our building official, can answer any questions relative to those and start filling in the blanks.
Great.
Madam President?
I just wanted to say that to my fellow council members, I was part of the stakeholder team, and it was truly an educational experience. And Ellie was there too. And I want you to really understand that we many times talked about the citizens' input, that it was, you know, even with some of the developers saying, you know, it is off the backs of our citizens that this community has risen. And so to leave them out would be just absolutely unacceptable. And so Don, you know, we said we want as many citizen contacts as we possibly can. But again, I think once you read it in full context, I think it'll answer a lot more questions. And it was, you know, and to even, I mean, Don's expertise is incredible. It's just incredible. And so for us to be able to do this and the foresight, I think, in my opinion, although I'm not a developer, and I stated that in the stakeholder meeting, is that it really will give everybody a sense of who we are, because we all know when we do surveys, it's like, well, are we a brick town? Well, we don't want to be like Leavenworth. And so to really pin down what is the makeup of our town, what do we want it to look like? I think, you know, and there's been a couple examples here in town that it's like, that doesn't really fit with. And so this is our opportunity as citizens and the design team to go, hey, here's kind of the overall idea of how we want our community to look like. And when builders come in my humble opinion, I think it will be easier to go, okay, we can see what we have to design to, and exactly the codes. I mean, Don talked about that earlier, is we'll see what needs to be changed to make this happen. And I too have thought about the developers and, you know, those that I know downtown developing, and it isn't that we're trying to make their life difficult, even though we, you know, it sometimes feels that way to them. But really our first concern was about the citizens. This is our community. We've built this community. And so we deserve to have input on this. And I think that was really apparent. And I know that I made that very apparent, probably more often than I should have. But it is our town. And so I, being part of the stakeholder team, which I was honored to be a part of, it was really a great experience. And I think it was very well thought out, because, as for Don, this isn't his first rodeo. And so for us, I mean, he's saying this because he understands that he lives and breathes this. And so for us, it's like, wait a minute, but I agree, trust the process, and read the document. And so.
I would also add into that, my professional background is as an architect and urban designer planner. But we have worked for and with certain developers, many different kinds of designers. And we understand what their needs are as well. So there is that a bit of hands-on approach that we can put to this overall process. So we aren't just competition managers, but we are people that have been building cities for a number of years.
Councilors?
But so, Deb, if you don't mind. So I see this in kind of two different lanes, well, similar lanes. One, this is for those who think that things are going too fast and it needs to slow down. I hear that. And this has been a 20-year process. These plans are recent. There are some that are within the last 4 years, but upon its inception, this is a 20-year process that now we are here with a set of plans, and it is getting very close to the time to implement those plans. Also, my opinion, we are the prettiest girl at the dance, and it is okay for us to make these individuals and others compete for our attention. We've been practicing all these dance moves. We're as pretty as can be. And there is some hesitation and some anxiety from our populace, I think, to actually step out on the dance floor and do something different than what they've known before. It's scary. And I hear that. And I think that there is much guidance and much expertise that will help us be courageous when we get scared.
I think everybody asked my questions already. But I would like to say that I appreciate, I feel secure in that there is a lot of good detail that went into the document that you've been presented in front of us today. And knowing that there are many more links to the other things that concern me coming from the Planning Commission. I don't believe we're going to leave the public out. I think we're going to end up with a really good product, and looking forward to the completion.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you again, Don, for presenting to us this evening, and nice work putting this manual together. And I look forward to continuing the process with you.
Thank you. I think we've got a very good start to this. And like I say, we have the ability within it to flex when we have to. And I really like the analogy of the dance, and you are the prettiest girl on the.
Oh, shucks.
That's only Justin and Jason though. So.
All right, at this point, I will invite any members of the public that want to comment on this matter to approach the dais. And I ask you first to fill out a comment form at the front table, as I mentioned earlier. If you want to comment, Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to comment on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
And there's no one online that would like to comment?
If anybody online is interested in commenting, you may raise your hand at this time. No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, hearing none, that concludes our old business for this evening. And last, we had planned to consider a memorandum of understanding for amendments to the firefighters collective bargaining agreement, but due to staff unavailability this evening, I'd like to entertain a motion to postpone this item until next week's meeting on January 15th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Grove,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Rule.
Yes.
All right, the MOU amendment is postponed until next week. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.